in an open convention, it doesn't take much to get your name in front of the delegates. And so it might be somebody that we can't even imagine yet. Somebody might be really ambitious and think that this might be their shot. Crazier things have happened.
The writing's been on the wall for weeks, but yesterday Joe Biden finally bowed to the inevitable and announced his re-election bid is over. In a letter addressed to my fellow Americans, Biden said it had been the greatest honour of his life to serve as president. He's endorsed his vice president, Kamala Harris, to replace him, urging Democrats to donate to her campaign. Joel Wertheimer is a civil rights attorney and a former staffer in the Obama administration.
I think he'll know he did the right thing. He was going through something that millions of people in the United States go through all the time, which is grappling with aging. He just had to do it on the biggest stage imaginable. But I think it's a pretty selfless and heroic act to say, I can't do this.
The 81-year-old says he'll remain in the White House until his term ends in January, but Republicans are insisting he resign immediately. Louise Callahan is senior US correspondent for the Sunday Times. She says the path ahead for the Democrats is unclear.
So the Democrats have ended one crisis, this fear that Biden was going to lead them into crushing defeat. Now a new one has opened. I know the Republicans are fairly worried and furious about, what to do. They've now got this kind of moving target going. Who are they attacking? Their line about, Biden's too old and senile to be president. Okay, well, that's not much use anymore. Who are they going to go for?
Well, we can speak now to Shannon Felton Spence, a politics and communications strategist at Harvard University's Belfer Center. Morning, Shannon.
Hi.
Joe Biden
Thanks
had
for
been
having
in.
me.
No, thank
What
you.
a remarkable day.
Yeah, well, indeed. Yeah, I mean, Joe Biden had been insisting for weeks, really, ever since that disastrous debate performance that he wouldn't pull out. So how will he have arrived at this decision? Why now?
First of all, calling that a disastrous debate performance is really understating it. It was an unmitigated disaster. I was watching it and within the first 2 minutes thought, this is a game changer, and this will go down as one of the biggest political meltdowns in American politics history. So it was huge. The weeks after, he's been very defiant that he was going to stay in the race, but the pressure was swelling around him. And as more senior Democrats were coming out and calling for him to reconsider his decision, and crucially, they missed their fundraising goal in July by quite a bit. When they started to see that the three things that needed to happen to sort of push him out of the race, the senior Democrats calling for it more publicly, the funding going down, and then their internal poll numbers showing that he didn't have a path forward anymore. It kind of, the jig was up. He had to go. And so I think that, even tonight, he is probably thinking that he is still the best person to win this race, but he did do what was right for the party and for the campaign going forward.
It's really interesting, Shannon, you mentioned the fundraisers, because, I heard from people over the weekend that senior, big money donors to the Democrats had told the Biden campaign not another penny until he's gone. And not just for the Biden-Harris campaign, but for House races, Senate races, and even statewide governor races as well.
Well, and that's the thing in American politics, right? Is you're not just looking at the top of the ticket, you're looking all the way down the ballot. So Senate, Congress, governors, and if the money dries up and they are not supporting the party because they think that the party is going to be slaughtered at the ballot box, that's a huge signal. And so not only were we hearing from, sitting senators and members of Congress that he should reconsider his decision, but we also were starting to hear from governors and even mayors on the local level because they were worried about their own races with Joe Biden at the top of the ticket. And so it just was sort of undeniable. I think that he would have been better off legacy-wise doing this earlier, but the Democrats have a real opportunity now to sort of retake the narrative. They sort of put that one to bed, and they have to find a way to energize around a candidate and move forward.
Well, that does beg the question as to whether Kamala Harris is now inevitable as the Democrats' nominee. Joe Biden has obviously endorsed her, as have the Clintons and many other leading Democrats. Is she on course for a coronation, or do you think there will be some form of contest?
I think it is very hard to run a campaign against Donald Trump for the past 18 months, saying that he is a threat to democracy, and then just sort of anoint a candidate that did not make it through the primaries. So I think that there will be some form of a contest, whether it is sort of a faux contest that's for show. I just think that like it would not be possible to take the narrative back if you have been hammering the Republicans about being anti-democratic for all of this time, and then sort of nominate your person in an anti-democratic process.
I suppose it depends if any leading Democrat is prepared to challenge her now, because already in the past 24 hours, we've seen Gavin Newsom, who's the governor of California, had been tipped as a potential presidential nominee, endorse Kamala Harris. We've seen Josh Shapiro, the highly rated governor of Pennsylvania, one of the key swing states, potentially might be Kamala Harris's VP if she does end up as a nominee. He has endorsed her. So you're wondering, well, who could it be? I mean, people talk about Gretchen Whitmer, who's the governor of Michigan. She hasn't formally endorsed Kamala Harris yet. But is it really down to one of those kind of big name governors? If there is going to be a challenge, they need to step forward.
So all of those big names that you just mentioned will be thinking two things. They will be thinking either they might be sort of wanting to be Kamala Harris's VP, which would booster them for 2028, or they're going to sit this one out and go for it in 2028. So I think you can pretty much count out those like senior names that people know. But in an open convention, it doesn't take much to get your name in front of the delegates. And so it might be somebody that we can't even imagine yet. Somebody might be really ambitious and think that this might be their shot. You know, crazier things have happened.
Yeah, it's very true. People do emerge quite quickly. I mean, Barack Obama, very few people had heard of him in 2007, 2008, but he kind of burst onto the scene, so you never know. I suppose the crucial question, Shannon, and this is what Democrats will be asking themselves when they weigh up who is going to be their candidate and whether Kamala Harris is the right person for them. Can Kamala Harris beat Donald Trump?
I think that she can. And the reason why I think she can is because they needed to get some new energy. The biggest threat to Joe Biden winning the general election was not a voter who decides to not vote for Joe Biden, but does decide to vote for Donald Trump. Those people don't really exist. There's not very many of them. It was sort of the choice between Joe Biden and staying home on the couch, as they say. And so by giving some new faces, you know, new generation, frankly, I think those people that would have preferred to stay on the couch will come home. And Democrats are very good at getting a line, and they're very good at coming home. And if you remember in 2020, you know, that election came down to something like 100,000 votes in 6 swing states. This one's going to be even tighter. So you don't need a lot of fat in the margin to win these elections. And so even if she just gets a small percentage of people to come home that otherwise wouldn't have, she can tip the scale. And she's going to have a lot of energy with women. She's going to have a lot of energy with some other demographics that Joe Biden was having a lot of trouble with. So we'll just see. And obviously her VP pick might help too. If she picks Shapiro, that could carry Pennsylvania, and that could make all the difference.
Shannon, really appreciate your time this morning. Thank you so much for joining us. Shannon Felton Spence there, a politics and communications strategist at Harvard University's Belfer Center.